Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another YouTube video. I've got a rare free day on the training plan today, so since it's pissing rain outside in Vancouver, I decided I'll jump into this Zwift race. So today we're doing 2 laps of the Everything Bagel in New York, so it's a pretty hilly course, and I think it's going to be pretty selective. So without further ado, let's get this race underway. Right off the bat, 2 guys attacked, and they got a pretty decent gap. I was also kind of worried because I know one of the guys, and he is quite strong. However, the first hill was coming up pretty shortly, and if I was going to have to close anything, I was going to do it on the hill. Once we got to the foot of the climb, they had around 10 seconds of a gap, and I decided to take the initiative and just try and close it myself.
Okay, we gotta go.
The effort to get back to the front was a pretty hard one, so I did 6.3 watts per kilo for just under 4 minutes. It's not a max effort for me, but it's definitely getting there. And the eagle-eyed viewers among you may have noticed that I'm not actually at the front. There's still one guy up there, but he ended up getting flagged, so I'm not really counting him as the front. The front group was kind of just established at this point, and we just rolled together until we got to the base of the next climb. By now, I kind of had an idea of how the race was going to play out, so I decided I was going to try and conserve as much energy as I could until the last climb, and then try and just attack away on the last climb. And you can see me implementing that strategy here as I'm going up the climb and just not setting the pace and staying in the wheels. It was also pretty clear that people were starting to get tired at this point because we did not go too fast up this climb. So compared to the last climb especially, we averaged 5.1 watts per kilo for 3.5 minutes. So really not like a super hard effort. And then there's one other important factor here. You'll notice that me and my teammate Ryan, we're the only people in the group who have teammates and everybody else is solo riders. And this is going to be important for later on down the road. And the next climb was more of the same. We kind of went up at around the same pace and we rolled around together the rest of the time because no one was strong enough to drop the rest of the group and no one was weak enough to actually get dropped by the group. So yeah, we were kind of all stuck together. While we wait for stuff to get interesting, let me tell you guys about a controversial opinion I have. I actually prefer Zwift racing to real life racing, and there's a couple reasons for that. So the first reason is, well, the weather. For some reason in Vancouver, all of our road racing happens super early in the year, so quite often the weather is like 5 degrees and rainy, if you're lucky. And the racing is more about who can battle off hypothermia more so than actual bike racing. Then the second reason is accessibility. So Zwift racing is just so much more accessible than real life racing, both from a cost point of view, but also from a time point of view. And then for me, probably the biggest reason is risks. So whenever you're riding outside, there's always risks of crashing, especially when you're in a race and people are getting competitive. But when you're on Zwift, you're gonna have to try pretty hard to crash. And I know there's a lot of people who look down on Zwift racing and kind of view it as inferior to road racing because in their eyes, it doesn't matter, who cares? But unless you're one of the riders winning like one of the national level events, it also doesn't matter, and who cares? I'm a somewhat competent road racer, and locally I'm even able to win occasionally if the situation plays out right, but I can honestly say any of those local wins bring me just as much fame, fortune, and meaning to my life as any other Zwift win. With all that being said, I still do like road racing, and I hope to road race in the future still, but I just personally prefer to Zwift race. Anyways, let's join back into the action here, and you can see what me and my teammate Ryan are starting to plan here. The 2 riders we're concerned with here are Sean Daly from the Wahoo Esports team and then Zim, the verified rider in the Project Echelon kit. Sean's got a pretty big threshold, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to drop him on the climb, but I need to drop Zim because he's got the best sprint in the group. So the plan that me and Ryan were going to carry out was he was just going to keep attacking on this last phase of the race, and I was going to try and sit in and save as much energy as possible while making Zim and Sean do all the work. And you can see us executing that plan pretty well here with Ryan going up the road and me getting a free ride on Zim's wheel here. And this pattern just continued to play out with Ryan attacking and one of Sean or Zim closing with me in the wheel. Anyways, I've skipped ahead to the point where we're entering the final climb. You can see that Ryan's put in a lot of work because he's already lost 1:20 after dropping himself from all that attacking. So here we are entering the last climb. You can see Sean has kind of taken a jump on us and has so much more momentum than me coming into the climb, and he instantly gets a pretty good gap that I have to close. I do manage to claw my way back to him, and this climb is very staircasey, so there's these flat sections in the middle, And you can tell that people are tired because as soon as we get to a flat section, everybody completely lets off the gas. Then once the climb started pitching up again, I felt that the timing was right and essentially just hit them with the biggest attack I could. My goal just being trying to get to the top of the climb as fast as possible with the biggest time gap. Now, the main thing I'm focusing on here is just that right side leaderboard and just the watts per kilo everybody else behind me is doing. And I'm just wondering, am I gonna break first or are they gonna break first? Sean sat up fairly quickly because he had already done a lot of work that day, so I think he was already tired. But Zim was holding the gap really constant, and it was kind of making me nervous because I was really pushing here. Then once we got to the final flat staircase section of the climb, once we got to the final flat section of the climb, I kept on the power and I saw Zim ease off a bit, and this is where I was able to grow the gap a bit more. So for this final attack, I averaged 440 watts or 6.5 watts per kilo for 3 minutes and 22 seconds. And in case you can't tell by my breathing, this was a pretty hard effort for me. By the top of the climb, I was able to pull out around 15 seconds, but the issue was Zim and this rather suspiciously named Valtteri Bottas, it isn't the real Valtteri Bottas, it's just some guy who's named himself that, but they had joined together and the two of them would be working together to chase me back to the finish line. I took some recovery on the downhill, then rode just fairly hard to the finish to secure my first win of 2025 on Zwift. I was neither the fastest sprinter in this group, nor the guy with the highest 20-minute power, but with the help of teammates, we were able to make something happen. Anyways, thanks for watching today's video. Hopefully I didn't alienate too much of my audience with my real life versus virtual racing debate. Let me know what's your opinion on the subject. And yeah, I'll see you next time.